Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar that we have for you today. Thanks for signing up. Thank you for joining in. We are 3 minutes past our scheduled time, so let's just get started. I want to start by introducing our guests. So, hello, Pavel. Hello, Bogdan. How are you guys?
Hi. Yeah, good. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, and I'm joined by Ada as well, who is my co-host today. I'm going to be moderating this podcast, this webinar. And today we are talking about TV, which is my favorite subject of all time. I've spent 4 years working on a TV project that had a bunch of different platforms. So I'm eager to hear some migration stories from foods on the ground, real migration of real product. And maybe you can start by introducing yourself and your company. What do you do?
Sure. My name is Pavel. I'm software developer from the beginning, started around 20 years ago. Last 10 years, I'm building streaming apps at Zattoo, and I started as a software engineer to work on the migration back then from Backbone to React.js for our set-top box software. But along the time, 10 years with the company was growing. There were new projects, new opportunities. So I took on a different role. Currently, I'm a head of engineering at Zattoo. And the last couple of years, we were involved in migrating our platform-centric native applications to React Native. And I was closely involved in this migration from the day one.
Nice. Bogdan, how about you?
I have quite a similar story to Pavel. I'm principal engineer at Zattoo, but unlike Pavel, who took management track, I'm stayed in technical and developed myself into principal engineer. And I'm coding over a decade now, and a huge amount of time I spent in Zattoo. And I would be happy to talk about the company itself. To share product we made and wrote, and our transition path to React Native.
Okay. Ada, how about yourself? What do you do at Callstack? What is your role? What are your main responsibilities? And why are you here today?
Yes, so head of growth of Callstack, in charge of marketing, new business development here today since, really interested in hearing more from your end about your journey to React Native, also from perspective of the challenges you face, how you overcome them, what it means for the organization and for team structures as well. We had many conversations with our customers and prospect on their constraints and their challenges when it comes to this especially multi-screen and multi-platform environment. And I think it's very specific for any streaming partners to have so many platforms, 8 or sometimes even more.
It's even more because at the end, our goal is to make streaming easy, and that includes all the different use cases. And sometimes you watch something on your phone, then continue on the tablet, switch to desktop, and then continue on any possible smart TV, game consoles, so a bunch of many devices.
So it's not only providing a great experience on each different platform, but also seamless experience moving between them.
Seamless, and I think it's also another challenge. It's not just a different technology; it's also very different user experience. So if you think of it, it's just on the phone you have a small screen, real estate, and then if you look at the TV, it's could be a 100-inch TV, and you still need to have a familiar user experience for your users.
And then you have a remote controller on top of that.
And then you have a remote control, and I can add more. So there are different remote controls.
You can have a wand even.
Yeah, so you have a pointer. The one you mentioned, it's a LG WebOS. So you have a pointer, so you can really a Harry Potter, magic wand. Then you have Apple TV, which is have swipe gestures, and then you have old-fashioned remote control with hundreds of different buttons.
Yeah, so that's especially Also, what I'm hearing about this experience, that may be one of the most complex apps that are there in the world, and especially interesting to hearing your story, how you can mix and optimize it using React Native to limit a little bit complexity, at least for your engineering team, to make development easier for them.
Yeah, sure. And this is what we're happy to share is not just the technical challenge, because that's technical challenge what comes like as a first when you think of such migration, but there are other dimensions which we would like to share as well. So it's also a team organizational dimension, and then there is a dimension of product and product consistency. So there are quite a few dimensions just beyond moving from Swift Kotlin to React Native.
Okay, so maybe for some housekeeping items, this is a webinar where Bogdan and Pavel prepared a presentation for us, and they will be driving the presentation. And like Pavel mentioned, we'll be going over multiple dimensions of this migration from native to React Native on different platforms and different variants of it, different dimensions of it, team dimension, product dimension, leadership dimension as well. And me and Ada, we are here to challenge you guys and to ask some more questions and to like go maybe deep into some topics that interest us from
Dive
technical.
deeper, not to challenge.
And maybe like me from technical dimension or team dimension, you from product and business side of it, leadership side of it. For everyone that is watching us, you can be a part of the discussion as well. You can share your questions in the, I guess, comment sections on LinkedIn and on StreamYard. I will be moderating those. And if you ask something that we are actually discussing right now currently, we can discuss your question during that time, or at the end we'll have some Q&A session as well, where we'll be like have a more open floor for this. So how about we get started, and I will ask Bogdan to start sharing the slide deck that we have, and this is it. So that's the fourth platform, how Vega got us surprisingly close to write once, run everywhere. And then for the Vega topic, let's schedule that a little bit later in the discussion, because that's a topic on its own. Let's get started with it.
Yeah, sure. As you mentioned, like to understand our migration path, I guess first of all we need to understand our product and what we are doing for our customers, for our users, and who is Zattoo is. Like we're quite popular in the Switzerland, like one of the number one streaming operators, and maybe in DACH region. But outside of that, actually, folks knowing us not as Zattoo, but some other different brands, and I will touch this point later. It adds to complexity to these variations we have. So the product itself and our mission, we started like 20 years ago. We recently celebrated, and we were pioneering in the streaming.
Congrats.
Thank you.
20 years in the business, that's not a small achievement.
Yeah, fun fact, we started the same year as YouTube.
Okay.
So we're pioneers.
Yeah. So you can imagine, like the same year, it was before World Cup 2006. So that was like
yeah. And over these years, the same principle we have in mind is like making the stream experience easy for our users, for our customers. And I was recently played with new GPT model and try to incorporate how I using Zattoo and how my family is using Zattoo as a product. So basically, it could be anything. It could be like watching Christmas movie with your family, gathering in the living room and on the big screen, or whenever I'm traveling, I have my mobile phone with me and watching like I don't know, whatever Formula One event or favorite football match. It could be some weird cases like once we put our application into the fridge, which has this multi streaming experience, and like you can zip your morning coffee watching what Trump did today. And like,
I hope not.
And also the world of streaming is very diverse. It could be in your car, right? All the car industry goes nuts with this, putting more and more multi-screen videos, so you can just travel with your family watching something there. And so together brings us like a crazy a lot of devices, platforms to support. And it's not only platforms. Within these platforms, there is operating systems. There is certain family of devices that we need to tackle. And more to that, we are known as Zattoo as our B2C business, but we also providing white labeling for our tenants. So now we can even multiply to that. So in overall, it gives us hundreds of applications with different variations to support. And gradually over the years, we started, I don't know, on Android, right? Somewhere, or on desktop web, and like build it platform by platform within own code base, within like own teams. And until recent years, like we covered almost everything we could, I guess, except PlayStation, but they have some contractual agreements, and for some reason picking only one provider per country. But overall, we like everywhere. Like every device that could stream something, we are trying to cover.
So you are on every device that can stream something, and you are on this device with your own B2C app, which is Zattoo, and then you are on the same devices with your white label solution where they can be tens of apps powered by the same code base, but then just modified to your customer design language or like similar, like user experience wise.
Sorry.
So we are, maybe to give an explanation to this. So the biggest footprint we have is for our D2C business, because like as Bogdan said, for example, we have an app.
Main product, Zattoo.
Yeah, that's the main product. It's not the main product. So internally, all products are very important. But I think historically we started as a D2C company, and also with the D2C product, we tried to reach like the highest footprint with all devices. For example, we are on Xbox, which is not relevant for some of our white label customers. Basically, for white label customers, we have an offer where we can white label pretty much any of our application. And then the way it works that they provide, like, first of all, they provide their branding assets. So basically, we make sure that the look and feel will match their corporate identity. Then they provide their content. So this is where, for example, like if we operate like Europe-wide, for example, we are restricted like with our D2C business to 3 countries at the moment: Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. But as a B2B product, we are available in Denmark with their own like channels, like and all content available. And this is like what their customers provide. And besides branding assets, they are providing also bringing their content. So for example, some customers like have, I don't know, like hundreds of live channels. The other have like could have a big VOD library of content.
Yeah, so do you remember the point of time where you felt, okay, this may not be sustainable for the future, considering all those variations and all those platforms?
I think it was always a challenge. So I think it when I joined the company, so 10 years ago, we were already having like an Android team working like on Android TV and Android mobile. We had an Apple team who was working on iOS, and at that time, like 10 years ago, they started to working on tvOS. We had a very small team working on Xbox, so Microsoft set of products. And then we had a team focusing on like smart TVs, so like kind of web-based smart TVs and set-top boxes. And we also had a separate code base and product for our desktop web application. So already at that time, we had multiple different code bases, multiple different teams. At that point, also we need to like look historical perspective, cross-platform solutions. So nobody heard about Kotlin multi-platform, React Native, or like Flutter. So at that point in time, there was simply no option. There were already some kind of considerations how we can like unify. For example, like okay, if it's a web-based like smart TV application, so like if it's LG, Samsung, of course, you can have an approach where you can build individual team on individual code base for that. And actually, when I joined the company, that was still the case, but we already there identified, okay, like synergies, and there is more in common than the differences. So we decided, okay, let's then, at least for apps where the technology is the same, we can unify and then still be able to handle like device specifics.
So 10 years ago, you have 8 different platforms that are handled by 8 different teams, and each team is supporting their platform and also supporting 10 or 15 or 20 applications that are built for that platform. But they all, like inside that platform, they all have like this core functionality that is common and only what I want to say, adjusted to specific country or specific client.
So you can describe it as like having different companies within one company, because at the end, Apple team, they need to build the full Zattoo experience, including white label, into their ecosystem. The same needs to be done by Android. The same needs to be done by web. So we were not 8 teams. So like it's rather 4 like different ecosystems, and then it includes building everything from scratch, which comes with not just a duplication of code. It also comes with significant load, because this team needs to have a knowledge about all functionalities of our app, like player, APG guide, content page, search, settings. So they need to own everything, and that's kind of multiplied by the amount of like different platforms we have.
How does the release train works in such complicated environment in that company back then?
So back then it was like because they were quite separate, working separately, there was multiple number of individual release trains. So obviously that comes with the like consequences that one team may be shipping their product monthly, another team may ship in every 2 weeks. And that comes with the challenge, like whenever you build something new, adding a new functionality to the platform, let's say you are now adding a credit section to the program details page. That means, like, depending on priorities and the availability capacity in the individual teams, so some team may release it in March, another team may release it in June, so that also results in inconsistency when it comes to the product experience across different platforms.
I think this touches into the seamless experience, right? So if I open some experience on the web of your product, and then I switch to mobile that is handled by different team, I might not get the same page or the same information about the particular content that I'm watching as I would on that previous platform.
Kind of correct. Like we tried to shape all the features behave the same. So UX was quite aligned, but like UI, definitely not, because Apple has own specifics, Android own, and like it's hard to reuse something in the code when you are talking about different platforms. But we can also say like we had this issue even within one platform, because we were not just 4 platforms. So before this migration that we're going to talk today, we did several migrations to unify platforms. So for instance, web application and web TV for us was different teams working on different pace. And during the consolidation of platforms, we achieved like some level of reusability, including component and view layer. But overall, yeah, you're right. Like experience was slightly fragmented. From one side, I would say it's not bad because like when you are close to your platform, user has like a native feeling of applications.
Oh yeah, of course. And like we want to maintain that familiarity of user within the platform. Mm-hmm. And this is where like React Native really shines, but let's not jump ahead of ourselves. And also, like I want to point out, I like how we are jumping ahead of the slides. And Bogdan is just switching them up in the background. Thank you for that.
Yeah, because it's really fits what we are discussing. But yeah, maybe to bringing back to the challenge that we are right now discussing. So from your perspective, what would you say was, for example, 3 biggest pain points that you faced in the old approach to your app development?
So I think it kind of can be broken down into 3 dimensions, because like if we look at the product dimension, is what Bogdan just said. Even though as a company we wanted to have like a unified experience. So for example, there is no like there are no any reason that our Samsung TV app like guide should look differently from Android. So that's, for example, whenever we develop like a feature concept, we will try to like provide it as a like unified experience. But then when it comes to the implementation, for different reasons, so that might be even very small inconsistency that only like designers may notice, but they will still be there because it's simply different technology, and achieve like pixel perfect user experience, like UI and like consistent user experience is hard. So at the end, we ended up to have like I would say it is somewhat same, but also if you look into more details, it may be different. I recall a situation like when we like a pause button in the player UI. So in our case, pause button is a quite complicated use case because depending on the country where you are, depending on the type of content you're watching, it might trigger different behavior. So for the user, yes, it results in the stream is paused, but under the hood, different depending on content and permissions, etc., it needs to follow a different path. And once we had a meeting like where we had to bring like more than 10 people from all the different teams to discuss how this small button should behave.
To fix one.
Because it was like we got a report like this inconsistent behavior, and we had to bring people from backend and from all the front-end ecosystem just to align on the behavior of a small button.
That's an expensive meeting to have.
Yeah, that's expensive meeting to have, exactly. And then like if we look at the technology aspect, technology challenge is obvious. Like you just simply have a lot of duplication. So you need to re-implement every platform in every different technology. And this is like, if you consider it's a lot code to be written, multiplied by an amount of platforms, and imagine like a situation where you need to add a new platform. Okay, like it's like you adding with every new platform, that's complexity and code we as an organization need to maintain, because it is the asset of organization. And the more code you have, like every line of code comes with the maintenance, the more you need to maintain. So there is a technology aspect of
it's
that.
important perspective when you think about it, because there are some challenges that you are trying to resolve, but there are also some opportunities that you can unlock, as you're mentioning, a speed of development when it comes to adding new features or adding a new platform, that more a promise of cross-platform setup.
You know what? Even like before we get into the obvious topic, which is React Native and all the benefits that we are unlocking, I'm looking at this slide right now. And so we have the existing apps that all have their own platform, their own team, their own tag, their own test, their own app logic. And then we have this new app to build, which like in terms of this webinar, we'll be talking about Fire TV and Vega OS, where you guys had to like adopt to this new platform. But just for like thought exercise, how about if we conceptualize what it would take in this old scenario to add a completely new platform without doing all the benefits, without doing React Native, just building from scratch for some completely new custom platform that is not React Native? How does that look in your ecosystem?
So I think it depends on the use case. So for example, if you look at the technology aspect, like So I think it depends on the technology which this new platform is depend on, because first of all you need to build a team. So obviously, and for that you need to look internally. Do you have a talent which has the necessary knowledge? If not, you need to get funding to hire such a team. And then you would just probably gonna be delayed start, because hiring takes time. And depending on the skills, it could be different timeline also to bring people on board. And then you need, with every new team you get, it's also a time to to make this team efficient, to find their ways of working. So it will be, even before you start writing the first line of code, if you don't have internal talent, it could be already months into the it will take a couple of months before you reach the point. So for us, if we would not go for a cross-platform solution, whenever we need to add a new platform, we need to start with the team, and then depending on the complexity of that platform, probably could start with the small team. But given the complexity of our platform, usually you need to have more than 1 or 2 engineers on the team to re-implement, adding all the layers of not just it's a Zattoo D2C product. You need to build also white label capabilities. You need to support various configuration per tenant, per country, different languages. So that would be a significant organizational investment, and it just goes a huge one-time investment. But then it is once it's there, you need also to maintain it. So that means you increased organizational complexity with that as well, because imagine now, I just made an example, we had a discussion about the pause button. Now you need to get more people on board, because now there is a new platform with new technology.
That also has a pause button.
That's a 12-person meeting.
So that's already, and then if it's one more platform, then you add more people. And it's not just engineers, because every team also needs to have, when you think of the team, it's probably first thing you think is engineers, but besides engineers, you need a product manager, you need a product designer. Depending on your organization, you might need to have agile coach, QA people. So that is really increasing the organizational size quite fast. And then with that, it's also reduces the agility of the organization.
But I guess from the perspective of your product, you already, even in this kind of scenario, what you mentioned was really interesting to me. You already have some paradigms that you share. It's just not the code that you're sharing. It's not the engineering. It's the engineering practices that you're sharing. So configuration files. So the tenants, B2C kind of capabilities. So that's all of those things that your product is already built around, the core of the product is the same for each platform. It's just that the sharing point is so high up in the tree, then to make it its own product for a new platform, you have to reinvent all of those engineering practices at the bottom.
Yeah, and it costs a lot. I mean, we try to build some shared abstraction, not the whole code base for everything, but for example, service for configurations, right? But you build so high abstractions and then trying to deliver to every team that it produces the all new level of problems itself, with all microservices, for instance, you can say. But paradoxically, this is what everyone leaning towards. So why we build so big code base over the years, so multiple code bases over the years? Because it's a natural choice, because you face an unknown, and the most cheap way to face this unknown, dedicate full focus only on this thing and try to not interrupt the rest. And this is how you grow with more and more platforms. Yeah.
I just displayed one comment from a viewer called Tizen WebOS, which I guess it's not an official Tizen WebOS account, but just someone that picked this name. Been 30 minutes and you're still talking about justification. Come on, folks, we need some technical expertise. We're convinced already. Okay, so you asked for it. Let's go to it. I guess we are already convinced that the old way of doing things is past us. We don't have to do it anymore, fortunately. So let's go to the actual meat of the discussion. which is, I guess, in the next slides.
Yeah, I will have to skip one, but let me just point it here into the one thing to just add some plus to the multi-platform approach. So this is basically what we learned, and we will have more learnings in next, is that when you focus on the platforms, you build in everything multiple times. And when you are focusing on really not the platform, not the project, but the user scenario, user feature, you focus on this feature, and if you implement it once, yes, it's much more costly than implement it on the one platform. You will spend probably twice more time to implement it to the all platforms, but you implement it consistently, and then it frees up you time to implement another feature, even if you take like more time. Just to think. And maybe let's talk about our attempts, especially failing attempts, because we learn it in the hard way.
Still no React Native in this section.
Not yet. But yeah, let's maybe speed up is also this thing. What we had before we discovered React Native, because our journey started a long time ago. As Pavel mentioned, there was like some technologies was even not exist. Some technologies were just appeared, and probably there was a time when the PWA just came up, and it was hyped, and it was very promising technology, especially when Google's Project Fuga promised that you will have access to everything. You can do native. And for us, it was a win-win situation because we redeveloped our web application from Backbone to React. And then also took a step into PWA and evolved PWA and we pushed some success stories like to the Windows market. They worked perfectly, but there was also concerns that we faced as like a limitation of the PWA platform or generally browser platform like a DRM. There is no way how you can do hard DRM protection, even if you wrap it as a TWA into something or put it into the Android. And of course, when you're trying to do something in web, it doesn't feel native, right? Because of animations and so on. Situation nowadays is much better, but still. And the same situation for us was with WebView. Kind of similar approach, and you can do even some hybrid things, like for example, like in gaming, you can do your game, or in our case, streaming native, but all UI around via web, but it's still like feels not the same. So naturally, all of our attempts were not really successful because we didn't match the level of nativeness for applications.
Yeah, and that was the period, and we are now approaching React Native, I promise. So that was the first time we looked at when all these having the wrap around web failed. That was the first time we looked at other technologies back then. So it was, I think, 4 years ago, I think around that time, where we looked, what is the state of cross-platform technologies like Flutter? What is the state of React Native? What is the other alternatives like Kotlin multi-platform? And at that time, it was still early stages. So there were not that many industry available use success stories to show that it could work. And there was obviously, it's a big unknown, it's a big kind of risk to go that path. So we didn't go beyond any small proof of concept. So it was still an uncertain situation whether we're gonna go to the full platform or not. And this is where I think moving to React Native would be the catalyst. So how we got into React Native, what made us switch.
So who made you switch?
So that was late 2022, if I'm not mistaken. We received the invitation to join a workshop from Amazon in Berlin office, Amazon Berlin office, and there was not that much information available. So it was just like an invitation, said that there is something important Amazon want to reveal. Everything is under NDA, so we can't talk about what it is. And we just showed up and we learned that actually Amazon is building a new operating system, which comes with React Native as a primary way to develop the applications.
So let's stop here and let's discuss Amazon for a second. So Amazon for years now did have their own TV product, let's say, like the TV device, which is called Fire TV, and it's a TV stick or TV set-top box that was, until very recently, powered by Android. And how you would target that device with your application is that you would just create a standard Android project and then maybe add some Amazon SDKs on top of it in order to do like payments and advertising, maybe something like that. And that was a status quo until very recently, but they have been working on that project, that new operating system that we know now as Vega OS for years. And then you got invited to be like an early adopters of this.
Yeah, that's true. So we and few other streaming companies from German market got this invitation. So we met few other developers from our competitors or like companies doing also streaming apps in the German market. And we were kind of selected by Amazon to be one of the pilot, like early developers. So the ones who are supposed to receive also support from Amazon to build for the new operating system. And for us at that moment, we already had Fire OS app, so the one you just described based on like on Android. And of course, that was like Amazon, like Fire OS and like Fire TV is a very, very popular device in German market. So this is like for us, it's like one of the most used TV.
Can you share like at that point or like today, what percentage of your users will actually use that device, like Amazon-based device, not necessarily Vega OS or that Android one, but like Fire TV in general, like what percentage more or less is that for you?
So I can't tell the exact numbers, but this is, I would say, like top used app for our D2C users.
So it's a huge priority for you to be able to service that market properly.
Yes, as a D2C and also as a white label company, we have tenants in Germany. For them, Fire TV also a very relevant hardware to run their apps.
So we understand that this then fed nicely into your already consideration about moving to a cross-platform. And can you walk us more about your then approach to migration and the technicalities between that? How did you start it, and how did you reach even this decision to do a POC and move into that direction? What does it take?
Yeah, so we started with the SWOT analysis, obviously. So we looked at the opportunities, and the opportunity was clear. This is that could be a driver for us to move away from platform-specific development to a unified cross-platform development. Then we looked at our strengths. There was that we were already having this monorepository, which was serving all our different React apps. So it was already we have shared infrastructure where we can reuse a lot, but it was limited to only one technology web. On the other side, obviously there were also weaknesses. We didn't have any React Native engineer in the company at that point of time. Also, our roadmaps were planned quarters in advance. So we kind of already were facing resource challenge should we move that part. But then we also were not able to say no, because that's Amazon. This is really a relevant platform so far. So it was okay, we need to build it, but the question at that moment was, okay, when do we start?
Jeff told them to do it, and they can't refuse.
Maybe still how to do it was also a question, because there was no question we're going to go there. The question was literally how. Are we continuing our approach, or we are taking this as opportunity to actually do multi-platform that we always dreamed about?
But this team consideration, with this maybe especially relevant to the audience that's listening to us, that's the question I believe we are getting the most often when someone is considering any migration from one technology to another, like how to lead your team. So my question to you as a engineering team lead, like how do you approach this transition towards your team and kind of convincing people about that direction to following your approach, retain the talent that you've already had and built within your organization?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first of all, there was a lot of skepticism, as you probably also see with your customers. Some of Android or Apple or even web engineers were questioning whether this is a general right approach to do. The way how you convince, also it's not convince, you just look at the facts. So now people are able to build for one specific platform. So now the company offers opportunity to work with the technology, which will enable them in the long run to build for multiple platforms. They're gonna add a skill to their portfolio, which then includes ability to ship one app to many devices, many different platforms.
Yeah, and probably that will be even in the coming kind of AI-driven, AI-native development. Even now, maybe at some point, bold statement, but less relevant what technology you're writing in, since AI native development gives you ability to right now develop faster. So that's also how you see this open question as an angle, especially that maybe technology is not so relevant any longer. It's about the skills that you as engineer have to
I would steer away a little bit from AI on this question, but go to the hypothetical that I did when we have to consider another platform with another language. So you have already experienced engineers on your team that have they know your product and they are really experienced. You don't want to lose them. So if you ask them to rebrand to completely different technology, it might be hard. Whereas in React Native, you might already have React developers on your team, and you might already have native Android and iOS developers on your team. So if you look at it this way, you already have those developers. It's not just full developers. You have pieces of that developer in different kind of teams. And then to AI question, it's still better to write one code and maintain one code and review one code instead of reviewing different ones. I guess we could go into
I guess you as a developer need to also prepare yourself to be able to write maybe on a different with different technologies that you haven't in before.
Yeah, I guess it's always better to have less code than more code. The best feature that I can write is not about lines of code that I add, but lines of code that I remove from complexity and make it easier to maintain and less buggy. And yeah. So what were we discussing?
how to onboard
moving the
engineers.
teams and how to transition your team. But we actually got a quite interesting question here.
Which one?
Name the last one so we can clarify that. Patrick asked us if you could share more details on how the React Native apps get distributed to different platforms. It is just covering Vega OS or different platforms?
No. We will touch it later.
Yeah.
There is the whole point about how to make it multi-platform in technical details. But covering this one, what Pavel said, right? He also said it to me as engineer who needs to be convinced. And I was super skeptical. I mean, I'm all web engineer. I'm all React engineer. And React Native is also quite a new world for me. And I wish I had we had AI at this time, because it makes everything super easy, like refactoring, onboarding to the new technology. But it was 2-3 years ago, when only ChatGPT, I guess, just arrived.
Different times, 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
you cannot really do call the
Ages.
agent and explain this for me or refactor this code base for me. No, not such thing. It's like a general fear that you are not capable to do it. A general fear that you have no expertise in that. But what clicks is try. Try, challenge yourself, and this is when you given the budget to experiment. Of course, you will first hesitate, right? But with very first wins, oh my God, it's working. I can do the same code for web and for Android now. I can onboard Vega on that. That's amazing. And then you just learn through doing and starting radiate this to others and others joining. And this is how we naturally grow from the 2 engineers, myself and Dennis, starting this SWOT, proof of concept, to the team, to 2 teams, to the whole engineering department.
Which would not be possible in technology that is not able to target all of those different teams.
Oh, of course. And React itself helped a lot, because if it would be on Angular, for instance, for us, it would be much more harder transition, because generally React and React Native, it's kind of subset, I would say.
So it was more like, do I understand correctly, like bottom-up approach? So just engineering, learning by doing, or did you run any company-wide training, or it was more just start working with the technology, feel it, and show to others?
It's both. So we once we decided to go that path, we created we started small with one single team. We were able to find a few React.js developers to start in the hand side. I think that wasn't the best decision, not adding native developers from the start, from the day one. So we started with just a few React.js developers, because that was our bet. Okay, React Native, it's like React.js. Some things are definitely similar, at least it's JavaScript. But also at the same time, we kind of wanted that all other engineers who are not that, at that point, were not participating in this project, that they also started to learn React Native. At that point, we got a Udemy business subscription, and there were so many tutorials, many courses available for React Native, and we encourage that people who are still working on Android or working on Apple, they start kind of learning at least in theoretical knowledge about React Native.
Back then, you still had to learn technology in order to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't full in. We don't even had a green light from the company, because that was a decision that was after we actually made something. And we did a proof of concept, just showing that it's possible to give more arguments to someone who is making decision, where to go. And I can show you a few slides. This is super early, ugly prototypes, but it's showing 2 things. One is a web with Bitmoving doing this stuff, another is Android, and written from the same code. And this was a changing moment for us, for engineers, to understand this is possible, right? And because React Native is super good in the secondary screen, iOS, Android, but when it comes to TV, it wasn't clear for us if it's working. There was some community fork, which everything is based on, and we haven't developed much knowledge about it. There was no expo or something. And here you can see we also connected Vega here, and this is a first screenshot to receive in Vega. Very simple. You don't have much to prove it. You're just proving it's working, right? For us, it was mainly stream is working. User can log in and talk to our backend. User can input and play around. That's enough to understand if we can move forward.
I think we can touch on this question real quick from Patrick. Was Lightning.js with Blitz investigated, and why was React Native preferred?
So for us, to first answer it, no, we didn't consider Lightning.js. For us, React Native was kind of a given, because we need to build an app for, in order to stay available on Fire TV. And this was the question, okay, do we build it yet as another app and team and another code base, or do we take it as a cross-platform opportunity to rethink the whole front-end organization and the whole front-end technology stack? So that's why at the end, Amazon made a push for React Native. After that, there were like not that much of consideration of alternatives.
I think that's also like a strength of our ecosystem, that we have huge companies investing in it, and like without early contributions from Meta, like early over the past 10 years, like continuous investments and contribution from Meta on React and React.js side, on React Native and React.js side, we wouldn't be in this place where we have this this framework available all of those different devices. And then someone 7 years ago or 6 years ago ported React Native to TVs, where Amazon looked at it and said, okay, let's just incorporate that. It seems like open source standard for building cross-platform experiences, and let's just build a new operating system on top of it. So like we have huge players behind React Native and React now, where something like Lightning does not have this kind of backing and this kind of
and this may be important for the validation and for a decision, right? For a big company to make such a transition and such a change.
Yeah, for someone like CTO who doesn't like research all of the newest JavaScript for frameworks on daily basis, and just has to make a right decision based on the data they have. And Amazon backing something and Meta backing something is a good backing to have.
Yeah, it's important. Inside the company, inside engineering, we also had a strong push for Kotlin multi-platform from Android engineers, right? But in the end, what played decision is just Amazon staking on the React Native. And for us, we could, if not that, we could turn in any direction.
So maybe now a good time to dive a bit deeper into the migration in practice, and if you could walk us a little bit through your approach from a technical also standpoint.
Yeah,
how have you started?
Technical details. Generally, as we mentioned, we started not from scratch. It was not greenfield, but it also wasn't brownfield, right? By the time we had a web ecosystem which was based on the Monorepository, and it had a lot of different projects. And one of the points of our proof of concept was ensure we can reuse some parts that we already had shared between web projects. That was configuration, that was some shared business logic when it comes to utility layer, which is fully abstracted in the JavaScript and without anything else on top. And proof of concept showed us that possible, so we made a decision to just make yet another project inside this Monorepo, and you can see on the slides like a very simplified schema or tree, how it looks, but very close also. So some abstraction layer, different projects written on the different technology. It could be pure JavaScript application, for instance. And the UTV, what is UTV means? It's the acronym we took for universal television, right? Putting like universality as a core to that it stands from others, and basically started to do bit by bit in this thing.
So having this monorepo structure in place was a huge leg up for you already, because like you could use all of the existing connections there, all of the existing sharing, and just use it in this universal TV project.
Yeah, some of them were super quick wins. Like if you properly decouple everything, it's not that hard to plug it in. The whole business logic layer was easy on the utility layer. I wouldn't say the story was that easy for something like infrastructure. There we had a sleepless nights. But like, or the language translations popped in, because like all the native that wasn't existing in the web. But yeah, overall it was very huge advantage, and this is why we choose this way in the first place. And one thing that was surprise for us is we anticipated a lot of work on the native side. So we thought like we will have to build the bridges and heavily adopt something. But if look on the state now, like adoption layer to the native platforms is very thin. Like and the way how we did it, like it's basically, I guess it's common for any React Native project. We still following the structure where you have platform specific folder. And I guess the most stuff we wrote for Android actually. Hard to say because we're still developing Apple, right? But for example, for Vega, it was amazing because Amazon did and pre-made like almost everything for us, driving this React Native packages. So most of the things like, I don't know, with some specific SSO functionality, cookies or whatever, they just taken as third-party libraries, very similar to the web. Generally, all the logic is more like how to pick one thing or another, and layer is more in the infrastructure rather on some native specifics.
And how did you decide? Sorry if I jump. Like, how did you decide what should stay shared? What can be shared and what should stay platform specific? What would be your advice for the approach here?
Generally, we try to make everything abstract. So whatever we can write once, right, in abstract sense. Let me show you the next slide. That's or next one or next one. This one. So basically, starting somewhere in the abstract file, which is let's call it index.js or JSX, and trying to write everything, and then see if it works. I mean, naturally, we are trying to run it in the web because it was fastest and most rich way how you can debug and develop. But also, then we try to other platforms, and in the luckiest scenario, there is nothing to do, right? But sometimes something doesn't work on the native side, and then we have this develop. I would say very classic approach. I seen it even in the C# back in the days, where we just take a model resolution and do overrides on the model level. So, for instance, input field is working different in every platform. So, and there you can write this component multiple times and tailor experience for specific platform. And generally, this is how we structure the whole code base by some platform extension. Even group them. For example, many things work in the same way for Apple and Android. So we just put the placeholder native and it's work by model resolution. And we very rarely writing something in the, like if this platform is something inside the code, which also allow us to strip up, to clean up our code and make like really custom distributive for specific app variation.
In the process of migrating Android app that's already live and it's React Native for you, did you end up sunsetting your existing app? And like, did you end up using some native parts that were already built in that app in your new approach?
No. So like our currently live UTV, like Universal TV app, which is based on React Native on Android, is like has nothing in common with the previous application. Obviously, when we were working on that, it was rather used as an inspiration, the old code base. So it wasn't like copy-paste solution, but it was rather like to make sure that we don't miss any scenario or is there, because that project was like existing for several years, and obviously there was like some like things which are not on the surface and like some complexity we need to port into the new app. But
so you did not strive for like one-to-one similar experience with your old app. You use this opportunity to also like refresh the experience or like add something.
No, actually, when it comes to the user experience, it was a conscious decision to stick as much as possible, like that users will receive a similar familiar Zattoo experience.
Okay.
Because there was a debate within the company, especially with our design team, whether we now need to take an opportunity and redesign everything to do a different user experience. And for us at that point, it was too much of a risk to do both at the same time. So we decided, okay, we're gonna stick with the old design. Of course, like it was possible to like make some iterational improvements, especially for the pain points which we were already identified, but it wasn't like a complete redesign or change in the like user experience or UI.
How did you handle the things like, let's say, observability, where you have some monitoring in your app, let's say how the page is performing on like some kind of metrics that you collect on your product, and then you switch the version of the application from like purely Android one to React Native one? I would expect there will be slight change in how events are reporting, for example. So how did you like approach this kind of transition? And like I'm using observability here as a placeholder for things will change, how they work internally, and it can affect how they are reported to your like business tools or like metric tools or things like that.
I guess it depends on area. You're right, totally. The approaches could be different because like we had a different tooling even for tracking something or to observe something. But where approach was the unified, for example, we have internal product analytics system with defined events. So there you can really compare. But some of them, or Sentry, for example, Sentry, there and there you can compare reporting, crash rates, there's unified data, but something where we develop new things, it was a bit harder. For example, we took a chance to develop new playback telemetry, but also had previous playback telemetry, and then we kind of connected it together and to receive numbers. But now we have like unified data flow, like you can see what's coming from what platform in the same way because it's the same.
Ada, can I ask you a question? What did you see in the metrics when you switched the version of the app? Like, how did your metrics looks like before and after?
So, like speaking of technical metrics, we closely monitored Sentry as a way to, because that's like a huge migration project. You replace an app for thousands of users.
Yeah, someone is staying like the whole weekend, like looking at those dashboards.
So we were like looking closely at the Sentry data, and surprisingly, like we kind of comparing like before and after migration, we stayed on the same level, even with the even slightly better scores.
Nice.
So when it comes to like user like reviews, like that, we need to be honest, like there were some like drop in the kind of user like ratings, and this is like one of the product learnings that like sometimes like basically we had an approach where we didn't release we didn't include certain features in the initial release because we looked at the usage data, and it seemed to be quite minor usage. So for example, like 0.5% of users were using the feature, and we decided, okay, we're gonna go for live migration, and then we added in a few sprints. And what we learned is that those people, even this small amount of users, they became quite vocal. And like, for example, that was reflected in our app ratings.
That are great results. And actually we got like one relevant question: which platform was the most challenging in terms of performance? Could you share something about that? You had to do a lot of performance optimization for to achieve those results.
So I think like the challenging platform was definitely Android. That first of all, and the most is that fragmentation of the platform. So if you look at tvOS, you have a limited number of OS versions and limited number like of possible hardware variations. If you look at FireOS, same thing, so limited OS versions and more different hardware than for Apple, but still you can count that. Android is Wild West. So there are so many different devices. So this is where
you can create your own.
Yeah. So what we did at the end, like once we like launched the app, and we basically tried whenever we were developing, we had like certain like different test devices available. But the primary device was Chromecast because that's like number one like when it comes to the usage. And you can't have like if we look at the fragmentation, we just like I think our playback telemetry shows like more than 800 different devices. you can't have 800 devices. But then once we were live and getting the data, we identified certain, like what Bogdan mentioned, one of the important metric for us, because we are streaming app, is playback telemetry. So we looked at the playback telemetry score, and it's like an aggregation of different parameters like buffering, channel switching time, like stability overall of the playback. And we looked, okay, where the performance became like worse than it used to be, and we ordered those devices. It turned out like to be some exotic devices, like I don't know, like some projector devices or like some TV device which is used in the camper van. So like when we looked, okay, what is that actually device is? It could be a very specific device with the lower usage. And like it kind of helped us to surface, and then teams were like working on like also like, iterating on the features. That's the big advantage when we switch this migration, switch to React Native. It's like we now can iterate. So this is where like after the initial launch, we had a couple of times where we improved like our program guide performance. And this is like a heavy UI component with a lot of computation where we need to show like a TV guide. And since the launch, there were a couple of iterations how to improve, and like we continuously now like working on performance improvements basically.
I want to go back to something that I think we skipped, because like we are already like 1 hour and almost 10 minutes in the webinar, and I think Bogdan is skipping some slides in order for us to have dinner sometimes today. But I want to come back to one of the slides that you skipped over, which is testing, which is like a huge topic in terms of like multi-platform approach and unified code bases approach. Because even though you have that one code base now, that one code base can have like different effects on different platforms in terms of performance, but also in terms of like bugs and broken functionality. So can you like talk about that a little bit?
Sure. That was quite challenging, I would say. But depending on which layer of testing we are looking. So as I mentioned, like a native code base, what we write in the native languages is rather thin, right? So we had some wins with already covered business logic before, right? And when you unified everything, you basically cover in JavaScript. But that's coming to the static layer or unit test layer or component test layer.
Which is already written and already tested.
Exactly. And if you cover it with more like you just continue gradually doing, and even during this one we even introduced it like a better coverage and so on. But when it comes to end-to-end testing or integration, story is very different. Totally different.
What about manual?
You need many TVs at home.
I know.
We know it from our team. There are 7 or 8.
I used to work on this team. I had many TV sticks and many remotes on my desktop.
Yeah, we have the whole TV walls in the office. But let's stick to automation.
Yeah.
Because we also heavily rely on automation. Producing hundreds of applications is unsustainable to manually test. It's not even sustainable, it's impossible for us. We tried different approaches, but in the end decided to heavily invest into automation, which gives us more like fast feedback and better coverage. But yeah, integration end-to-end. When it comes to the multi-platforms, each has own utility framework for this. So for web, there is Playwright. For Android, which is Appium, right?
Appium.
Yeah. So they cover it, and we had the coverage of tests as well there, which is also reliable. When it comes to React Native, if you outside of the secondary screen and mobile applications, there is nothing there. Basically, something appears recent years, but we face it that there is nothing we can take as React Native to test everything. So what we did, we basically developed our own universal test framework, another universal word here, and started to cover all the platforms. In nutshell, we took our playwright tests because we love playwright, and we had a super big coverage on that, and started to adopting and executing in native platforms. And we are still in this journey. We cover it now Android. We have a way how to do it on the Vega and TV in Apple. But still, like, there is a lot of things that you need to tackle there because there is nothing outside we can just take.
So this universal testing framework, is this a way for you to write tests once and then run them on
Exactly.
few different platforms? What about where platforms diverge in terms of UI or functionality?
Kind of the same story as with model resolution. So you have a different. We do model resolution on test level as well. Mm-hmm. So we could write specific tests for Android. And whenever we are launching our test over this app variation, which is on Android platform, this test is executed and it covers specific either feature or even scenarios for that. But yeah, that's a whole new level of the things to handle.
I really like this slide, and I really like this headline, like bottom line at the bottom. Write the test once, root execution per platform, key differences inside helpers. Like this really like the composition of tests and all of this like really can make not even like the TV apps, but like all of the apps better. Where like you have to maintain white label apps, you can have helpers for different versions of your functionality so that your test is very shallow and like very generic. And then it tests like the behavior specific for platform or behavior specific for the particular product. But then like this is still the same test. I love it.
And it pays off, especially universality and some built features, for example, reporting that we are making for our customers. Whenever we are creating release, we also running the whole automation suite with thousands of tests. Mm-hmm. And we are providing this report, what's failed, what's stable, what was covered in the different formats like JSON, PDFs, and generating per platform was a bit hard. We used like different toolings to universalize that, but once we moved to universal approach, it was just working for everything the same way, and we can have report for every app variation.
So in general, once you run cross-platform code, there is nothing which stops you from writing cross-platform tests.
Yeah.
So it's just, again, leading to less code. It kind of a complex to set up in the beginning, but once it is there, you kind of benefit a lot.
It's amazing. And when we talked about the challenge, you mentioned how adding every new platform was adding a new team and how your team is structured. Maybe that's a good moment to ask you to walk us through the change that happened when it comes to team structure and for you to show us how you build teams around cross-platform technology.
Yeah, Pavel can talk about it. Can I interrupt you? Before you're running into that, from the technical perspective, I will show you one thing and then it's all yours, Pavel.
Yes,
so the thing that we now were able to focus our teams into the features, also change our way how we are structuring our code base. So Conway Law obviously strike at us in, and we organized our code structure into this thing, which helped a lot. Because the huge challenge as a principal engineer, for instance, who are taking care of developer experience as well, and who is interested into the development flow, is like developers can focus on their stuff and be not interrupted by something else. And when you work in the Monorepo, it's always like challenging. But with structuring per team domains, we were able to like really focus, so team can autonomously iterate on the code bases, on PRs, and ship it. But the transformation is a whole another story. So, giving it to you.
Yes. Oh, you can stop here on this slide. Yeah, so I think like one of things which inspired us to like define the org structure is like team topologies. So very great book, highly recommended. in the nutshell, what they introduce like a different types of the teams. So basically, there is a stream-aligned teams, there is like platform teams, complicated subsystem teams, and like enabling teams. So in short, the main teams in the organization are value stream teams. So basically, this is the teams who are building like functionality. So for example, a team which is working on the player experience, there could be another value stream like content and search functionality in your app, and then you can think of like taking all the sign up, account management into another value stream. Then you may have a complicated subsystem team. So basically a team which abstracts away something very complex. For example, it could be like in the video like domain, it could be like working with video codecs, or like in our case, it's like working with the playback. So basically playback itself, quite complicated topic. Also, it's a difference between the between different platforms, but we want that our like teams don't think about like, is it now about playback on tvOS or is it playback on the Tizen? So basically that we provide hide all these like differences under like layer of abstraction, and then we expose player controls as a unified API. So that would be a use case for a complicated subsystem team. And then you have another type of team, which is platform teams. You can think of it's like a value stream team, but which is serving internal teams. So it's kind of about development experience, making sure that like CI configuration or general like consuming configuration is easy, and the teams don't need to reinvent how every value stream, for example, applies internalization. So how they change the language or how they receive, I know, a tenant logo to display in the menu. So basically that was what inspired us. And we realized, okay, we're gonna go on the like moving from like this platform specific teams to building like to the organization which is structured around different value streams, and also along the way we will have the supporting types of the teams. So,
would you say that? I'm not sure if this happened, but would you say that switching from platform teams in terms of like iOS team, Android team, and etc., to having teams focused on features, having teams focused on complicated subsystems, etc., allowed you, this like specialization allowed you to make the team size lower?
No, I think like overall, like it didn't make your organization lower, but it's more about what you can achieve with the same people. So it's not about reducing the cost or
more
reducing
efficient.
the size. It really makes you more efficient, because imagine previously this whole platform team had to know everything about all the features in the app. And now if they are working on that, let's say like presenting content to the users. So there are a couple of concepts that they need to think of, but they don't need to think about player complexity or like how sign up is implemented, or how do we upsell something to the customer. So they really can think and iterate on how do we present content, how we make search more usable. So I think this is the biggest value. So that is previously what we've seen in the past with platform specific team. We were moving from one feature to another because like the industry evolving, there is constant pressure to build something new, and you hardly go back to iterate on something that we built like few years ago.
Yeah.
With this model, you reduce the amount of ownership, and what Bogdan presented, if you also able to transfer this ownership in the code, if you can also structure your code around this like ownership areas, that also make it kind of easier to like I kind of live in this monorepo where like I don't know, many pull requests, where a lot of noise, and not everything is related to the team, because we can also then attribute test runs to affected area. We can attribute assignment on the code reviews based on the affected area. So kind of it makes many things easier if you follow this kind of domain structure, which is then in the organization in your code.
Yeah. Let's just move on with the presentation, I guess. I can see that there are still few slides left. So let's jump to the topic that's next on your mind.
Oh, Well, basically, we can dive into this one. So this is like technical part, how we transition was the biggest one, but also like this part that involves how teams are restructured, how the skills are restructured, is also the same level of important. And if you would like, we can share like how we actually transition engineers into that. So it's not only about forming teams, it's also like reshaping daily work of folks. Do you want to talk?
Yeah, so I think like we started small. So we started with the single team, like working on React Native, because like there was a big challenge. How do we keep all the existing development ongoing? So basically we had the native applications. We can't simply on day one, like say, okay, now we just freeze them and then we all move the whole organization to the React Native. So that's like not possible unless you have a huge budget to like hire a bunch of new engineers and start a new team. You can't do it like in one go. And was our approach, to start small with one team. And then what we quickly realized that, okay, you need someone with the React Native experience. Even though we hope that React Native or React engineers can pick up React Native quickly, one of the learnings was like, okay, we would hugely benefit from having someone with React Native experience. And this is where at that point we had a budget, like one person left, and we decided instead of hiring like Apple, Android, or like another web engineer, let's bring a React Native person to the team. And was like a very good investment because it was we got really a lot of insights and help how we can shape our transformation further. And we started like step by step moving more people to this project. So we were like kind of taking like basically one of Android or one Apple engineer was joined this project over the time. And at some point we got to the stage where this initial team became like almost 10 people. So it was clearly, okay, that's at this stage we need to split into multiple teams and also look at the other areas. So this is where actually we started to move from like a single team to how we can move to this stream-aligned end-to-end ownership, and which is reflected in our organization. And on this slide, you can actually see how we address this. So basically, there are different types of the team ownership presented. So like the kind of feature development, so feature parity was like one of the goals, because we started from we said from the beginning, okay, we need like once we like launch React Native, we need to be feature complete. And this is like one of the main goals was to make sure that all the functionalities is available. So we now have like the streamlined teams which are focusing on the catching up with the feature parity. Then there is this device complexity layer, which lives into areas. So basically playback is a beast, and it's also platform specific. So basically we have a team.
And it's also your main functionality.
It's a main functionality. This is like the one, if it breaks, then this is like very noticeable by users, because this is like, you may have like some inconsistency in UI, but playback should work. That's why like we have this playback SDK and team who is developing this playback SDK. And this would be like complicated subsystem team if you consider the team topology analogy. Then we also realized that's like what Bogdan said, like the whole thing with tests, with configuration requires a lot of investment into infrastructure. And this where we created a team focusing on this tooling and infrastructure, which is analogy of the platform team. And we had a couple of principal engineers like Bogdan and the other people who are not directly bound to a team, but they can collaborate and join like temporary to help team, like for example, with like some complicated topics, like in support delivery, but sometimes also like as enabling team to, I know, like we got at some point one principal engineer who was previously also experienced with React Native, so helped to bring this React Native knowledge to the individual teams.
Can you share a ballpark of like the team count, like the streams team, and like the ballpark of headcount in order to do this migration and like maintain your product for all of those different platforms?
Yeah, sure. So I think like at the end we ended up to have like 3 value streams. So this is where like in our case there are like teams like focusing around like content and search. There's one value stream. There is another team focused on about playback experience. So it like covers topic like on-screen display, playback itself, and all related functionalities like multiple audio, supporting multiple audio tracks, supporting subtitles. And then another team which is focusing on topics like sign-up experience, login, user account management. So you could have around like 3-4 engineers in one team. I would say it's a good number, and especially if you can bring on board like multiple like people, not just React Native engineers, but also with background in one or another platform. So for example,
definitely, yeah.
If you have 3 engineers, let's look at the example, and one of them is former web engineer or knows like more about JavaScript and web technologies, another in former iOS engineer, and another Android. So what you have that this team can own implementation end to end. So for example, like let's look at the topic which requires platform development. That would be like SSO. So obviously, if you need to log in with Google, obviously this is like very Android specific, which is different from login with Apple, which is Apple specific. Having 3 engineers with 3 diverse backgrounds, you can build it in one team.
Yeah.
So then you don't have a separate team who is providing you like with Apple knowledge or Android knowledge. So I think that is like, yeah.
And can you share what was the attrition? So at the end for the team, because we mentioned a big concern for some organization is, will they be able to retrain the talent that they built? How was it in your situation? Most of the team stayed on board?
Yeah, I think, yes, most of the team. So basically, some people left. So like, but comparing the overall numbers, like majority stayed, and some people left like quite quickly. So they were like after like we announced, okay, we're gonna go for React Native. There were a couple of engineers who realized quickly that this is not something that they want to do, and they found the jobs where they can continue their path as an Android or Apple engineer. And then I think another wave was once we moved to this stream-aligned value team, there were also another kind of few cases where people so basically they gave it a try, they tried it, and then they realized that, okay, maybe this is like not the thing they want to do, and they left. But it's maybe not just React. I would not blame React Native. It's also, I think, like in some cases we failed on onboarding these people, because also like we were continuously learning React Native and like providing everyone equal or like sufficient support, and was quite hard when you have both delivery pressure and like the overall your organization is learning React Native. But I think, if I just percentage-wise, I think like probably we lose like, I don't know, 10, maybe 15% of
what can be also
engineers.
a standard change
It could be,
within
exactly. So
companies.
it could be like roughly they're like into like natural attrition in the company, but there were no like, okay, we just leave because you switched to React Native. So many people gave it a try. And now we have teams where we have this like in diverse backgrounds in one team. So for example, we have teams where like Android, Apple, and web is equally represented.
And you have the right talent for a platform specific.
Exactly. So then whenever they face something that requires like a platform integration, there is someone on the team who is capable of doing it. I think the most native experience we have in the team who is responsible for the playback experience, because obviously this is also very platform specific in certain cases. So they need to build this playback SDK, which is under the hood, like uses like, I know, Bitmovin for web, or like Shaka player, like for also web, and then uses Exo player for Android. So builds an abstraction on top of that.
Yeah. So still using the core skill set and knowledge.
Yeah, so there's a blend in the end. in certain area we see less. When it comes to the UI functionalities, probably this is less, but also there are some platform specific integration. Usually like you have this like, I know, like content integration where you want to present some content in the UI of the operating system. And then you need to ensure that whenever, like, I don't know, like the users click on the teaser that they get redirected in our app. And then, I don't know, we save the playback position. Or like there is a layer of device-specific development in every of value streams we have.
So what would be your advice for like engineering managers facing the same? You mentioned showing the opportunity to the development team, also providing them with some basic training and learning. Anything you would add upon that to successfully run such a transition?
I think if you have a chance, at least temporary, to bring like external expertise or someone who is expert in React Native to work together with the team, because yes, like courses and workshops help, but nothing works better than actually doing something together.
Side by side.
Side by side. So I think if you can temporarily augment your team with bringing some React Native expertise, that could be the best way to go through this migration period.
Thank you. I think that smoothly also brings us to, in general, lesson learned from your transition. So maybe we can, we mentioned teams. We can dive deeper into other lessons, what failed and what not.
Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, you can go with technology.
Okay. So what definitely worked well, this approach to extend modules, to still be able to write something specific for a platform, and having this build time overrides to cater like this platform specific experience. Regarding domain organization, that was a huge win because like generally we're able to iterate faster just because of like a focus on particular things rather trying to catch everything everywhere and be this in endless FOMO. To know, probably like investing into infrastructure on the very beginning. So to provide good developer experience, because it's matter, because when you are approaching to the very different technology, for example, folks from the web, they used to like a quick feedback from the dev tooling. They used to quick builds, hot reload, and so on. And it's possible with React Native, right? But it's not that easy as with web, for instance. But still, for native folks, the same, like a debugging tooling, proper things. So investing into developer experience, investing in infrastructure, so you have like a test feedback fast. Like in matter, like for us, usually like any contribution could take an average 10 minutes for being accepted by automation tests because we segmented these layers and pointed affected tests, not really running everything at once. Yeah.
It's also that infrastructure debugging layer, if the team is not that experienced themselves, and if they're not given that infrastructure layer by platform team or like enablement team, they do not know what they do not know. So like they are not able for themselves to set this up and to think about all of those different aspects. And like that tooling is like very much crucial for people that are coming into React Native from different worlds, from Android, iOS world, and they don't know what to expect. So like the best practices needs to be like set up for them almost from the beginning, so that they have this like better pace of making changes and better confidence that those changes are making sense.
Yeah, exactly. We also, for example, we abstracted our CLI layer. So usually people working with NPM scripts, for instance, to run something to discover, or with React Native CLI or whatever, we developed own, which is kind of superset on top of it, but also give you in one line setup of the whole code base for all the platforms.
Yeah.
it gives you abstract command to run specific systems. So you're just choosing your variation, dimensions, feeding into your environment or providing in the wizard, and you can get like a either development instance of your application running or for a specific for a test or production ready and so on. So these bits are really important because like in previous it was done always by project teams. So they were handling both features and infrastructure. And if you also like split this one so folks could focus on the real user features, that pays off. And what you already mentioned, the early we add someone who is expert in some domain, like someone who knows React Native, that accelerates everything. So on initial phases when we were like in the first months of iteration, there was no such expertise, so we made something up, right? But when folks join it with knowing what they're doing, they're like, look, there is simple thing, let's go with this one, and like generally dynamic was totally different. And I would say also keeping like a native expertise is also important. We, I guess, made mistake there thinking that we can just collect all the native experience into one bucket, right, that will execute it. But what was more important to have really like a cross-functional team that can do, has in the team has all expertise that needed, but also experts in like some specific scope of domain. Someone is Android expert, someone is Apple. And for us, it was important to preserve this talent because we have people that working over the years with these ecosystems and know their best. And yeah, that was a huge win for us to like shape it like that. On the product side, there is different learnings. Overall, I would say what was natural is that, like, let's take performance, for instance. There was a very big concern when we started this project that performance could match. Like literally every native engineer said, like, it's impossible. You cannot do with abstraction same level of performance that you can do with native, which is kind of true. And it is not. It all depends how you implement it, right? And for us, definitely our first version of application were like lagging behind performance of native application. But ability to iterate was giving us ability to think about some specific performance issues. And now I would say we, in some fields, outperform native.
Outperforming native.
Yeah, I mean, native, let's be clear, our native applications of Zattoo.
Okay.
So it's like we are like our benchmark is the previous generation of our native applications. So
not talking about abstract benchmarking. No, just comparing product to product.
Because that's what we can still do. We can like, start our Android like React Native app. We can start launch next to it Android like native application. And for example, like with the improvements, and this is what domain-driven organization, value-stream-driven organization enabled us to iterate, for example, on the TV guide functionality. And now if we compare both, like the new one is much faster. And because also the previous setup didn't allow us to iterate on the guide. So like we built the guide like years ago and then we were just doing some fixes based on the bug reports. But we were not able to really go back and say, okay.
If you wanted to iterate on it, you would have to like choose the platform that you want to iterate on, because like it would be impossible to just shift focus for every team to just like suddenly work on performance of this specific part of the application. Whereas in React Native, you just go, if you make this faster, people all different platforms will like feel it. Yeah. I don't know if I want to ask this question because like we are already 1 hour and 40 minutes in, but what's your performance like testing infrastructure? Like how do you actually like verify that something is faster or slower?
Tough question.
I know.
This is kind of thing that we are still developing, let's say so. We are trying to utilize Center right now, but there is always like a performance measurement comes with the paradoxically with performance concerns. As soon as you pipe it in and start tracking, if you implement it wrong, you can be in the wrong place, like just by introducing this measurement. Overall, what we focus at as a streaming company on the playback data, and there we are well covered in terms of performance observability. We see like streaming start time, switching time, and so on. The view layer is still developing, so I cannot share much here.
Okay. Let's talk some more after the stream.
Vega has very nice. They very focused on performance, and they have built like custom Vega KPI measurements. Which is super nice. So what's left? I'm out of slides. Oh my god!
Are you out of slides? I can see some few more.
Yeah, so is there anything that surprised you once you migrated to React Native? Anything surprised you about React Native?
That is possible to so that the kind of for us it was always like whether we can do this migration. I think now with multiple platforms being live, that's like beauty of having that's the promise of React Native, to have this unified experience, to build once, run everywhere, seeing it live, used by thousands of customers. I think this is like a very rewarding, because at the end it was like when we were starting, it was kind of we can probably be there, but when, how is it possible? I think that was always like a question we asked ourselves, and I think seeing it live, it's like it's not a
was
surprise.
There someone who believed in it from the beginning and who was like really pushing for it and was saying, "You will see, this will like work someday, and you will all thank me"?
I was like one of those people, because that's like you can't really get to this stage without having like people who are believers, promoters of it. And there were like different challenges along the way, but it was always like believe that we can reach that.
And how much of code sharing do you have right now for the platforms that are already on React Native?
So I think if you look at the UI functionalities, and there are like big parts of our app, like for example, which are not specific to the platform. Let's take TV guide or show details pages, those would be like 100% code sharing. So I think the playback would be still like the amount of code sharing would be lower, because then under the hood there was all the platform specific players. But for the UI functionalities, I would say like I would not probably say 100%, but 95, 99%. So it's quite high percentage of reuse. And then when it comes to platform specific, like SSO will be obviously then it's different functionalities per the platform. So it's hard to come up with a general number. It really depends per area.
Okay.
But then being close to 85%, it's a huge gain, and I think that's what we also know from our practice, is definitely a number that you can reach. What is a surprise for many people we talk to, that you can do this in a TV environment? So it's amazing to hear this story in practice. And
for me, it's still a surprise it works. But I'm also super surprised at how it accelerates. Generally, we have super big struggles to onboard first platform, second platform, even with third one. But now, adding new platform takes much more or less time. We develop the expertise, tooling around, because it was going alongside. And now, I don't know, it's really pays off, and we can see it in our demos, internal demos, that showing features we completed. I don't know how it's so condensed now comparing to where we were before. It's 20% more maybe features are developed.
So let's look at my question from 2 hours ago. What about the release train right now? How it used to look 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and how does it look now? What is different in terms of like release schedule?
Do you want to talk another hour about that?
Oh yeah, let's do that.
That's my topic. Generally, when I joined company, we were in some weird state, like because there was a different kingdoms of platforms. Obviously, the release train was different per platform. Even in the web platform, for instance, there was a web application that was delivered within the sprint, like a 2 weeks iteration sprint for us, and there was a big screen application that were struggling to deliver once a season.
Mm-hmm.
Then the more you unify, the better you can reuse. The same goes to our release train as a universal approach. So we are not using continuous deployment or delivery on purpose because we have B2B customers and also application update in TVs and like in native. It's not happening over the air right now. So the best space for us is after one sprint iteration of teams, we ship it right away. And it's happening right now. Now it's more question how to scale it properly, so it works consistently, reliably. But generally, we ship our applications within now dozens, not yet hundreds, but dozens variations every 2 weeks.
Nice.
So basically, we have like let's say when we do release cut, we consider this is the code release. And from that point, we start parallel delivery to multiple platforms. So we have what we call platform chapters. So there is like Android chapter. They will take this Android artifact and they start stage rollout for Android. Then there is like a chapter responsible for the Vega. They will start release of Vega. And then you look at the platform specific like monitoring tools, like for example, Google Play Store console to monitor Android like vitals to make sure that the crash rate or INR staying in the health area. So basically there are two kind of stops. We do like a general release and then platforms do the rollout. So we distinguish between release and rollout.
But that's like incredibly impressive that you were able to move from the scenario that you, Bogdan, just described to something that you can reliably say, we do that every 2 weeks. Like, this is awesome.
We ship with confidence. I mean, we applied many, it's not only technology shift, it's paradigm shift, because we applied also shift left approach. So everything that we deliver to the main development is already ready to be shipped. And then it's a question like how to aggregate testing everything on the releases, which usually, because of amount of platforms, takes around a week for stabilization. Sometimes it's green in the first day. Sometimes we are facing some issues because like some specific scenarios for this platform wasn't looked on, because it's very hard to develop like everything at once, right?
Yeah.
And it's also hard to develop this pace of development where you like test everything before you doing it. So we're trying to recognize everything that is affected, but then do the whole bunch of testing during the release cut and stabilization phase. But yeah, like think about it, like it's dozens now, and we're expecting hundreds this year.
Okay, guys, let's do this. We have still like 3 slides left, so let's go over them and try to answer some of the questions, because like we have a bunch of questions in the chat that are touching like different topics. So we'll do a quick round of Q&A at the end, and we'll try to wrap it up in 2 hours, okay? Like fit into 2 hours. So Bogdan, show us the last slides that you have.
Bogdan shows and I then can quickly talk about.
Yeah.
So that is like shows that where we are now. So we are live on with React Native on Android TV since September last year, live on Vega since October last year. We also like for some of the, for example, for Android TV, we are live not just with like our direct to consumer. That was also another dimension when we started rollouts for our tenant. Actually, now we are in the open beta with FireOS, so it's adding third platform, which is supposed to go live like in May. tvOS, like we are preparing for the beta launch. And then smart TVs, like web-based smart TVs in active development at the moment. So this is kind of covering our big screen device footprint, which is like planned to be live like within like...
This is a little bit surprising to me, and like, sorry if I challenge you a little bit here
sure.
at the end of 2-hour session,
No
but
problem.
how come smart TVs are at the end of this like release process, migration process, where you started with Monorepo that had web projects in it?
Yeah, that's not just pure technology topic. It's also about, because that's the question, we need to maintain the releases of our existing applications. And this is the cost of maintenance of the existing web, for the reason that like web TV, what we call like a Samsung TV, like Tizen, is lower and less intense than keeping live like Android TV or keeping the native Apple TV. So it's not just pure technology, it's also product decision on
And a business a
and the
little bit
business
also because
decision.
of the
So
cost.
this is like we came up to this prioritization because it's like relatively easier for us to keep them alive and have this parallel track, but rather close parallel tracks on tvOS and Android sooner.
Okay, so you are actually like migrating those projects from React to React Native as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically we built from React Native to web. So which is,
Yeah.
but this is the only path for true cross-platform approach.
Okay.
And the big challenge, so today we talked about big screens, so all the TV applications, but the bigger challenge ahead of us is that apply the same approach for our iOS mobile, Android mobile, and the web, like progressive web apps. So this is coming up next, which will come with its own like infrastructural challenge, how we scale the existing infrastructure to solve those use cases. Possibly it will affect our team topologies and team structure, like team setups, hard to say at the moment. We kind of have a vision and we built a proof of concept like end of last year, how we're gonna do it, because there are also like different ways. You can start like completely greenfield approach. You can like start with React Native, but like as a standalone, like and build all the UI again separately. What we will gonna try, and that our proof of concept shows, that we can approach like use a responsive design paradigm to scale down. So like probably everyone knows mobile first approach. So it's like when you develop web apps from mobile and then you scale to other devices. So for us, it's gonna be scaling down what we have from TV to mobile.
That's gonna be fun.
That's gonna be fun.
That would be a material for another webinar and
that's
podcast
probably
for
could
sure.
be another webinar, but that's where we are. Like next is to go from TV using the same approach, say reuse as much as possible for small screen devices.
Oh, we actually have someone on the webinar mentioning that tried that approach.
Oh, okay. It would be interesting to know if they can post like how did it work.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Abstract remote is quite painful. Yeah. So I think we have one thing left for us to wrap this up in 2 slides about some things to read. So first one is from you. Do you want to share the story about it?
Yeah, sure. Like Bogdan, if you can move to the next.
Yeah, it's there. It's about Amazon slide.
Good. So basically, we also like Amazon published a case study of how we approach like this adding Vega to embrace like write once, run everywhere, and then if you go to like it's currently on the homepage of Vega OS. So if you go there and follow the link, you can read more. Like it also covers some parts we discussed today, but also like has some different things which we were not able to discuss today.
I think I'm gonna post this here so that everyone can read it. That's the link. And another link is a plug from our friends at Amazon. Anisha Malde, developer advocate at Amazon, wrote this blog post that I'm gonna also post in the chat about some of the things that we talked about today, where you guys over the past 4 years created some paradigms about code sharing, some paradigms, some tooling yourselves. And this is a blog post about how to do it today, how you would approach this today with some tools that Amazon created, that Anisha created, some best practices for what to share, what not to share. Go ahead and read this. Oh, Anisha is in the comments as well. Thank you so much for joining. And I think we can move to the Q&A section.
Sure.
Are you guys ready to answer some hard-hitting questions from our audience?
Let's give it a try.
Okay, so sorry for everyone. I'm not gonna read all of them. We have like 5-10 minutes. Let's see. But let's start with this. Recommended approaches for low-end web-like TVs. I guess meaning in performance terms, right?
Oh, that was a question no matter which technology you're facing. So low-end TVs are usually old TVs, right? They have like a very outdated browser because browser is shipped together with firmware. So there, be careful with polyfills you are using. I mean, avoid them as much as you can if you know your device compatibility, and ship less JavaScript as possible there. So what just driving this TVs crazy is a memory. And if you have memory leaks or you need to have like extensive memory capacity, this is where the first things to look. Do not ship what you are not using.
Okay.
But also keep it simple. So this is like, if you can, like look at the components you use. So try to have, like the less you render, also the better performance. So look at the, not just from the technology perspective, but from the product perspective, how you can achieve the goals you want like to solve with your app, but with the less components, like look at the renders.
I really like how you said that. I worked on a TV project and I also have a few articles and talks about TV development, and low-end Android devices in TVs are very popular and very common. So like what I'm advocating sometimes to do is that you don't go for the most shiny, most animated experience for all of your devices. Maybe for some Apple TVs, you go with that because like that's native feel. But then for some of these older devices, maybe you will just scale down a little bit. Just
also
keep it
got,
under control.
One advice in this case, when you measure performance on those devices, like don't compare yourself to the newest Android TV. Compare your metrics to your competitors and how other apps are doing on same device. Because that's also some like mistake we sometimes see when you are chasing same performance measurement metrics and goals as you have on the newest device.
Yeah.
It's like
Totally, graceful degradation works for this one. And maybe as you on TV, probably you're streaming something. So what we learn it in the hard way is better to stick to the native players that ship it with this system rather than try to put some abstract approach that will also consume more memory to plus one player. So don't have two players.
And one more recommendation would be like if you know your devices, like and like as an engineer, you can have like a different device on your like office so that you regularly look and benchmark. So that was like not related to React Native, but when I joined Zattoo, I was working on like React based application for set-top boxes, and we were supporting at that point couple of generations. I had on my desk the lower generation, so if I could make it to work on the lower generation to get to acceptable performance, I was quite confident that it's gonna run smoothly, like perfectly on any more powerful hardware. So kind of use it in your development setup.
Okay, I have an easy one. Does using React Native overcome the pain of trying to create a Tizen developer account to test a TV app on Samsung TV?
Unfortunately not. So this is like still you need to have like this is where when it comes to distribution, this is React Native is not helpful, and you need to stick like with all the processes like with Tizen, LG App Store. So this is where it's like
This one is connected to this. At this scale, how do you handle the length of the smart TV certification process?
you can't. So basically, this is the good thing actually for us, like because like certification usually you need to do once you like submit the application. At least for us, when it comes to Tizen or LG, we are using web-hosted applications. So at least I know like for Tizen, like previously we at some point we used package tabs, and then with every release we need to do the certification. But once we switch to the like web-based applications. Web-hosted applications, that certification process, whenever we only need to change something in the package itself, but app updates could be done without the recertification. But whenever we have a new tenant to launch, this is unfortunately out of our control.
And this one, I guess, is a little bit similar, and you answered it already, but just like to recap and maybe to share why not. Are you using some sort of remote distribution mechanism for web native apps? Some of the store reviews processes are quite annoying. So are you using the over the air updates or something?
Unfortunately not. Like the known way how the Microsoft were doing this one were shut it down, and there is not much alternatives to that. We are looking into this one, but not yet there. We also want to have over the air updates, and it would be a crucial feature for us. And we're thinking about a bit different approach, not taking a third party, but maybe think about server-driven components as well, or something like that, or develop abstraction for a view layer that like client will know about it, and then we ship more from the server, but not yet on our roadmap.
So it's more like this server-driven UI approach where you kind of get the configuration from your backend, and then app can recognize the structure and build the apps.
And this is beauty of React Native.
So from our experience, the code push that you referred to from Microsoft one was already like closed, but based on that open sourced code, there are like a few different solutions that allow you to either go towards like a vendor path where you have end-to-end service as you would with code push, or you can like get your own solution. So like use open source solution from community and then set it up yourself on your own infrastructure, instrument your own client, instrument your own backend, and have like the same experience as you would with vendor, but everything is controlled by you, including the server code. So like those solutions do exist, and like we implement it for other clients, and like they work perfectly fine, as similar to code push. And also like with we didn't touch on Expo in terms of TV. We don't have time for this. But like Expo also has Expo updates, which is you might say vendor software as a service solution. Okay, should we go to some other questions? Okay, yeah, let's do this one. Let's do the Roku one. Where is the Roku?
Oh,
In terms of technology.
So it's not framed as a question, but it was asked during our discussion of the platforms that you are onboarding.
Yeah.
So what about Roku, guys?
Question to Roku.
That is like the one thing. Roku is less of a relevant platform for us. Roku is big in US.
Yeah.
Like we are primary targeting like Europe market. Like our primary region is German speaking countries, Austria, Switzerland, Germany. So therefore, like it's not in plans, but as far as I know, there is, at least I'm not aware of React Native support for Roku. You need to build like I think Bright script is the name of technology. It's quite like
right now it's like the only kind of outstanding platform that there is. So still looking how much code sharing you can get. It's kind of, you just need to pivot and usually like what we observe on the market, just people keeping a separate Roku team outside of the structure, or sometimes just having some external agency just handle whole Roku platform and still build the rest.
Who knows? Maybe someday. It's funny because like Harmony OS, the operating system from Huawei, just recently got React Native support. So maybe Roku will be next, who knows? And on this bright topic, maybe we should wrap it up. What do you think? It's been a pleasure of talking with you for 2 hours straight. Thank you so much for coming. We are streaming from Wrocław, actually, and we are sitting in the same room. I forgot to say that. But we have 4 different cameras, so we have 4 different pictures here. So we will go together for a dinner now, and we can continue
sharing with everyone.
continue this discussion. Ada will post some pictures from the dinner on her Instagram, so follow her there. And maybe some last words, like what do you want for people watching this stream to like get from it the most, basically?
Standards. I mean, that's like all of we are here, some are connected to React Native, no matter which field we are coming from. What is React Native probably is missing is like a better standardization of approaches, better like alignment where secondary screeners now from the big screen point of view. And there is no standards without advocating for them. And this is something we practice and would love to have this more in community, no matter where it's come from.
Okay, Pavel?
As I talked a lot about organizational setup, I encourage people to think of their like how their organization are currently approaching team topologies and really look into this building stream-aligned value teams. So kind of reducing the cognitive load for single teams and unlock the parallel development on multiple kind of value streams, which is thankful to React Native, or maybe like in your case, maybe like you can also like think of other cross-platform solution, which is then very helpful, like enabling like technology to do.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing your story. Really appreciate it, and believe it's like so important to have companies as yours, as Zattoo, sharing their story with the community, especially being so open from not only technical standpoint, but also sharing the change when it comes to your engineering teams and how it affected product, because not many stories are shared from this perspective. And I think we are missing more successful stories like that to encourage others. And that are the questions that we so often hear from other companies facing similar challenge. So I'm sure this will be a big source of knowledge and encouragement for some of other companies within this ecosystem. And they can look at Zattoo use case and get inspired. So Thank you for that.
Thank you for having us, and indeed for us. I wish I would have such a webinar like to watch when we were considering, because like 3 years ago it was even less information available about TV use cases. So I think like hopefully our like story helps other companies to decide to go cross-platform.
Awesome.
I'm sure it will.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for watching, for being with us, for interacting with us on the stream with the comments. And we will see you around in the next webinars and live stream. Thanks.
Thank you.